get going whenever you want to.
Hello everyone and welcome to the All Sports Betting Podcast. We are back at normal. That's me and obviously my partner in crime, Steve. How are you doing this weekend, Steve?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks, Kev. Looking forward to a weekend of action and looking forward to us resuming our, we're covering 5 leagues in this particular podcast, so plenty of juicy bets to get stuck into.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a busy weekend, as it always is this sort of time of the year, particularly with the English leagues and the French leagues sort of starting to get going good and proper now. So hopefully we can nail some winners over what will be the next 30 to 40 minutes or so. We will start with your league for once this week, Steve. There's some big games there. I'll talk about the big game shortly, but before we do that, let's go through some selections that you've got. You've obviously got 3 selections in Saturday's matches, starting with the early kickoff in Monaco, where you like the home side.
Yep, an early kickoff here, Monaco against Strasbourg, and I'm surprised the Asian handicap line's only minus 1.75 really, because the golfing class is quite big. I'm guessing it's because maybe people are put off by Monaco losing 4-0 last week against Nice, and then only drawing in the midweek Champions League. But for some reason, Nice have a hoodoo over Monaco. They beat them, I think, 4-0 in last year's fixture as well. So it's a poor matchup for them. I wouldn't read too much into it, especially on the back of the international break. Strasbourg have come into Liga and they found life difficult so far. Just 1 win, and that was against Lille when Lille got reduced to 10 men and eventually 9 men, I think, because of substitutes that all used up. So take that out. They've not done an awful lot. They got battered 4-0 by Lyon on the opening day. They even lost at home to Amiens last week, and Amiens are the worst squad in the league by a long way. So Monaco are going to win. They're not going to fail to beat Strasbourg. It's a question of by how many goals. And usually Monaco like to rack up the score, for those who followed them last year and this year. Just in the last home game, they beat Marseille 6-1, which is quite a staggering result, really. It shouldn't be. It should be a breeze. Minus 1.75, just an obvious one that stands out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, with that bet, you'll get half your winnings should they win by 2. But there has to be every chance that they're going to win by more than 2. So that looks a safe one. Now, we've just previewed one of the better sides in Liga. Now we're concentrating on sides that are a little bit more hit and miss. You've got a bet for us in the Guingamp versus Lille match.
Well, yeah, I remember actually, I think it was last Friday night, I mentioned on Skype here that I fancied goals in the Lille game against Bordeaux, and it ended 0-0, didn't it? But one of the main reasons I usually like goals for Lille is because the manager, Bielsa, the ex-Marseille manager, he's such a wild card. You just don't know what he's going to do next. He's played some really weird formations this year, but usually he likes to play attacking football, often to their detriment. The last 3 games have actually all gone under 2.5 for Lille, which probably means they're due an over. And Guingamp are the sort of side who will attack, quite positive-minded. I think every single game of Guingamp has contained at least 2 goals this year. Doesn't surprise me. They tend to look to be on the front foot whenever they can. I think this will be a sort of end-to-end match of football. Both teams will give it their all. Lille are much better than their league position suggests in terms of quality on the field. They've got good offensive weapons at their disposal, but the manager was not going to come here sitting for a 0-0 draw. Over 2.25 goals, Kev. I think very worst case scenario should be a couple of goals, but this is more likely one of the overs this weekend in French League One.
Yep, fair enough. Sticking with sides that are hit and miss, Montpellier, they've not won since the opening game of the season, have they? And you're more than happy to take them on again this week.
Yeah, this is a riskier one. I've got Troyes draw no bet here against them. And if you're feeling quite safe, and you don't really need to take this bet, but just look at the value. Montpellier, you say they've been hit or miss. They've been more miss recently. They're actually managed by someone called Mikel Zakarian, and this guy is probably one of the most overrated managers in the whole of France now. He had a good period at Nantes a few years ago, but since then he's been pretty crap, if you ask me. He failed to take Stade de Reims from promotion last year in League Two, even though he had probably the best squad in the entire league, or one of the best squads. Yet surprisingly, despite that failure, Montpellier decided to bring him up a league again and manage them, and he just hasn't done anything so far. He's too negative There's not enough goals in the squad. Montpellier are a really nice team to watch the last few years, but now when he's in charge, you don't really want to be watching many of their matches. Troyes, they've just come up. They're going to fight hard for everything. They're going to graft. And this is not going to be a classic sort of game. It could even be a 0-0, actually. I wouldn't recommend you watch this one on Saturday night, Kev. But I just got a feeling Troyes might nick it and heap more misery on De Zakarian, something like a 1-0. But with draw no bet cover, I think it's certainly around the even money mark. It's worth a go.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I can guarantee there's absolutely no chance that I'll be watching this.
You go. You go. Yeah. Don't store it up. No, then. It's fine. Turn off.
Now then.
Now, welcome back.
Hi. Poxy fucking thing.
Yeah, it can happen, can't it? Anyway, so I've just done that pick, and you were going to say something like, "There's absolutely no chance of me watching that."
Yeah, there is absolutely no chance of me watching that. I can tell you that for now.
So, if you want to start off by saying that.
Okay, we'll go with that then. So 3, 2, 1, go. Yep, I can guarantee there's absolutely no chance of me watching that game on Saturday night, Steve. I'll concentrate on some of the other football that's going on, I think. There is one big game on Sunday night, as I said at the start. PSG, they're obviously the flavour of the month. Big, powerful strike force now. They host Lyon in one of the big matches in France. How do you see that one going?
I think PSG will easily win the game. The Asian handicap line's minus 2.25 though, and the goal line's as big as 4.25, which is really not what you expect in French football. What I've seen from PSG this year, though, they're much better. I mean, just in midweek against Celtic, I mean, I know it's only Celtic, but I mean, they could have had 6 or 7 if they wanted to there. Neymar's made a massive difference. He actually keeps them going right to the last minute. He's a bit like Messi in that way. You know how Messi just wants to score goals right until the last minute of injury time? Well, PSG in the last few years have a tendency to kind of sit back the last 10, 20 minutes when they know the job's done. But this guy just keeps propelling them forward. It's like him and Cavani and probably Mbappe now. They're in a personal race to get as many goals as they can in the team. They just want to muller everyone. Maybe taking a leaf out of Monaco's book last year. I think they'll beat Lyon. Lyon do not have the defensive stability to cope. However, Lyon do have good offensive capabilities, and PSG have been more vulnerable at the back this year than you think. It probably will be an over game. Whether or not it's over 4.25, I don't know. If I had to stick a correct score, I'd probably say 4-1 to be honest, or 3-1. So I don't want to get involved with big handicaps, Kev. So I'll leave that one. We'll move to the Premier League now, where you've got a few picks this weekend, starting on Saturday. Watford against Man City. I know it's not too often you actually get involved in Watford games, Kev. So it must be something you quite fancy strongly.
Yeah, there is, Steve. I like the overs in this game actually, over 3. I always think that there's going to be goals, not necessarily Watford games, but certainly games that Marco Silva manages in. Although he's got a solid enough defensive stability, his sides very rarely play defensively. They, especially at home, they often go on the attack. They look to score goals. They're in good form, which is annoying for myself as a Luton fan, but that's how it is. And with the exception of the Brighton game, they've scored a couple of goals in every game this season. That Brighton game was a really, really weird game. Woodwork was hit left, right and centre. So I just see the game playing out as a kind of open attacking game, similar to how Man City Liverpool was playing out last week prior to the sending off. Obviously, they scored a few goals after that, and then they went away in midweek and confirmed their dominance at European level now with a good win in Holland. So they should be nicely tuned up for this one. Sometimes I can worry about City on the road, but I don't think I'm going to worry about them in this game, because I don't think that they're going to be playing against a side that are going to try and stifle them in any way, shape or form. I think they're going to play a side that are going to go against them, go at them. And actually, that's the way to go against City. They are going to score goals. I think that's an absolute certainty. It's just a case of when they score them. But without company around, you can get after this Man City side. Liverpool had a few chances last week. I know they didn't take them. There was one particularly weak effort from Salah, wasn't there? But prior to the sending off, they were certainly getting chances. I think Watford will get chances here. And you look at the likes of Richarlison, Andre Gray, Troy Deeney. They've got goal scorers there too. So I can see there being a few goals in this. Certainly see there being 3 goals in this. Man City could even cover that themselves. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 4th either.
I think this fixture was 4 or 5-0 last year, wasn't it? Or something like that, although it was when Watford were on the beach. Yeah, this looks like a good bet for an over, I must say. Totally agree with you on there. Especially City, really confident, aren't they? Especially after midweek hammering Feyenoord away from home. And another side who did well in midweek was Tottenham. I think they surprised a few people by beating Dortmund, didn't they, Kev? I think it's fair to say, especially with this sort of Wembley hoodoo everyone's been banging on about. And they've got Swansea this weekend, a fixture which they can't really afford to slip up in, can you? And you think they're going to get the business done easily?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you're right. It's a fixture they can't afford to slip up in. Obviously, they've already had a draw and a defeat at Wembley in the league this season. Maybe midweek was exactly what they needed. A chance to prove that they can perform at Wembley against a decent enough side. There'll be better sides than Dortmund go to Wembley this season. Certainly in the next Champions League game when they play Real Madrid. But it set a benchmark, didn't it? It was a game that there was doubts about them going into the game. And if their minds were thinking, oh my God, we've got a Wembley hoodoo, then it was certainly a game that they could have slipped up in. But that wasn't the case. Okay, I know that the game could have gone 2 each when Aubameyang had a goal disallowed, and then Spurs went up the other end and scored and put it to bed. But maybe even things like that are going to sort of give them a little bit of extra belief that there is no hoodoo around. Quite simply, Swansea are a terrible side. I don't rate them at all. I didn't rate them before Sigurdsson departed. Certainly don't rate them now. Not sure why they've gone back to Wilfred Boney. He looked a busted flush at his last 2 clubs. Okay, I know he did well for Swansea, but there's always a saying in football, isn't there? Never go back. And I think that's a wrong move. I like Tammy Abraham, but really and truly, you look at this Spurs side and where are Swansea goals going to come from? I'm not convinced they're coming from anywhere. Davinson Sanchez has added a new element to the sort of competitiveness of that Spurs defence. And then you've got players like Serge Aurier, who's only going to improve it should he get the start down the right-hand side. I see Spurs scoring, not at will perhaps, but I certainly see them creating chances at will. And I just think, just like last year in this fixture when Tottenham won it 5-0, I just think Tottenham are going to have a pretty comfortable time of it. Swansea are just too poor for my liking. They've just lost to Newcastle, who are in no great shapes themselves. The only game they scored in was against Crystal Palace, who are pathetic right now. And, like I say, to put it simply, I think this will be a big home win.
Yeah, Spurs minus 1.75. That is your selection for this game. Let's move on to Sunday, where there's two big games. I think Sky are building this up with one of their stupid things again, isn't it? Some like red, blue or whatever, something like that. But anyway, let's get on with the football. Chelsea against Arsenal. Arsenal, of course, coming into this game on the back of a Europa League victory. But I'm not necessarily sure it's going to be the confidence boost they need, because Chelsea had an even bigger result, didn't they, midweek, hammering Karabag 6-0. You fancy the home team here, don't you?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I'm not going to read too much into their Champions League result in midweek. They didn't really beat anything they did, Chelsea. But, I mean, there's a hoodoo. We've just spoken about Wembley hoodoos, which may or may not exist for Tottenham, but there is certainly a hoodoo when Arsenal go to Chelsea. They just do not look anything like a side that even gives you the slightest belief that they think that they can get a result there. They either get absolutely wiped out, or they're competitive for half an hour, do something stupid, and end up losing quite comfortably. Okay, last season it was slightly different, wasn't it? Eden Hazard produced a moment of magic. But even then, Arsenal played quite well in the game and they still couldn't win it. That's a concern. I'm not particularly keen on Arsenal away from home, I have to admit. I don't think they've got the sort of mental fortitude, let alone the guts in the heart of their side, to go away from home and get a result anywhere in the Premier League, quite frankly, let alone at Stamford Bridge, which is usually a renowned home fortress. And I'm prepared to allow Chelsea that first game against Burnley when clearly all was not well. Obviously, they had 2 men sent off as well, so that didn't help matters. I think the normality is going to resume here. I think Chelsea are going to get back to consistently winning ways at home. I think Arsenal are going to struggle on the road. They've already lost at Stoke. They've been battered out of sight at Liverpool in a game that they barely turned up in. And when you factor that this game starts barely 60 hours after their last game finished, you know, there's all of the credentials there for Arsenal to feel a bit sorry for themselves in a way that only Arsenal can. Not turn up and, you know, sack it off sort of thing. I fully expect Chelsea to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Conte will out-coach Arsene Wenger as well, because let's be honest, he's a far more adaptable manager. Wenger only knows really one way, doesn't he? So I think when push comes to shove, even if it is a closer game, Chelsea, I think when push comes to shove, they're the team that can get over the line. The other game is Manchester United against Everton on Sunday, quite a big fixture. Be interested to hear your thoughts on this one, Kev.
Yeah, well, it's being built up as Rooney's return, isn't it? That's if he even plays. I see no reason why he wouldn't play, but how much of an impact he's going to have, I'm not sure. He's a big game player, Rooney. You've got to give him credit for that. But listen, anyone who saw my website before the Premier League season began knows full well that I'm very keen on Manchester United winning the league this year. I've seen absolutely nothing in the first 4 games that suggests that I'm in any way, shape or form wrong. I think they're the best side in the league, all things being equal. They might not have the attacking brutality that Man City have, but they certainly have a much better all-round outfit. And obviously they've got players to come back later on in the season as well, having signed Ibrahimovic. Big concern for Everton. Obviously, they've just been wiped out by Tottenham in a very worrying performance. And then they followed that up with another one in the Europa League on Thursday night. Per se, I don't really read too much into Europa League results, but I'm never keen on taking a side or even not opposing a side who've been away from home in the Europa League. They'd have finished that game at 8 o'clock. So the earliest they'd have got back is sort of middle of the night, stroke early Friday morning. It's just not good preparation. And the fact that they got wiped out in their last 2 games means that they've got an awful lot of thinking to do with not much time to do it in. Manchester United are going along lovely right now. Okay, Paul Pogba's injury is a bit of a dent to their chances, but they've got other midfielders that can fill in, do the job for him. And I think they'll win the game.
The handicap is minus 1.5 or minus 1.25 on United. Would you recommend a bet here, or you think you just want to stay clear?
Yeah, I would go along with that. I wouldn't want to go any bigger than that, I must admit. You know, thing with Mourinho is he doesn't run scores up, does he? Which is a bit of a pain. But I don't actually think he'll need to run scores up here. I think Everton are going to be quite tired-legged. You would think that Koeman's got to go into his sort of reservoir of youngsters for this match, purely because he's burnt out the more senior players in the last 2 games. And I expect them to struggle. I know that Everton fans will come back at me and say we drew at Man City after Europa League tie, and you'd be absolutely right. But Man City obviously had a man sent off in the first half of that game, and that was the Monday night. It wasn't Sunday afternoon, and I think that's a big difference. And also in that Europa League game prior to Man City, they didn't get the runaround for 90 minutes like they did on Thursday night. I just think the fresher side are going to win.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your thoughts on the Premier League, Kev. Now we're going to move to English League 2, which is another one of your speciality leagues. And let's start right at the top of the table, Exeter. They're on 19 points. They've won 6 out of 7 fixtures. They're on fire right now, and you certainly don't think they're worth opposing anytime soon.
No, that's right. I thought they had a bit of a sticky banana skin on Tuesday night, and when they went a goal down, I thought that was very much the case. Barnet are usually a good side at holding on to leads, actually, but they didn't hold on to that one. They lost 2-1 quite late on, and I think that'll be a real confidence boost for Exeter, actually. They'll be kind of glad to get back to St James's Park. Obviously, 2 road trips. Okay, Forest Green's not a million miles away. Barnet on a Tuesday night is not the best journey, so home comforts should suit them nicely. Funnily enough, their home form, although they've been winning games at home, it's not as strong as their away form. Their home wins have all been by 1-0. But you look at who they've beaten: Cambridge, okay, hit and miss there, but Lincoln are expected to go well this season, and Newport are going well. So they're winning games at home, albeit not looking fantastic, but I think they're going to look a little bit better against a Crewe side who've just lost in midweek, much to my annoyance, having backed them. They lost to a pretty average-looking Cambridge side, and one of their key players, Connor Grant, is out of this game, so that'll be a bit of a blow for those. It's not really the kind of place, Exeter, that you go and you think, Christ, this is a great game. I'm going to really raise my game here. Although it's not the worst stadium in League Two, St James's Park, it's nothing like the best stadium. So there's no sort of motivation things that Crewe are going to gain from it, apart from having sore asses from sitting on the bus for an awful long time. So I just think Exeter, they're in really good form right now. They're a really, really good side. They play really good football. Even the curse of the manager of the month hasn't struck this lot. And I don't think Crewe are going to either. You can get sort of 1.9, that sort of area, for Exeter to win this game. That wasn't big enough to me.
Yeah, they're looking great form right now, I've got to say. You don't want to be opposing them. Your second selection in this league is going to be Grimsby Town, who face Yeovil at home. Now, Yeovil away from home, they've already conceded 14 away goals in 3 games. Staggering, absolutely staggering stuff. And Grimsby, you think you can get them over around the even money mark, Grimsby Town. You think they're going to have enough for Yeovil here?
Yeah, I mean, I was pleased to witness more than half of those 14 goals in front of my very eyes on the opening day of the season. Actually, you've kind of nailed why I'm taking this bet, to be fair, Steve. It is more of a fade of Yeovil on the road than it is anything to do with Grimsby. Having said that, Grimsby, they're starting to look like this sort of side that they should be, really. Kind of a mid-table, can beat good sides, should beat poor sides sort of outfit. They had a really weird run towards the start of the season. There's actually 5 matches where they had a man sent off on the trot, which is quite crazy, even by League Two standards. But they've managed to keep 11 men on the field recently, and they've done well from it. They've won 2 of their last 3. A really good win on Tuesday night at Accrington. I think that's a really tough place to go to win that game. That shows that they've got quality in their squad. And those 2 wins have all of a sudden propelled them from kind of looking over their shoulders below them to actually being 3 points off of the playoffs. So another win here would go lovely. Yeovil, you've got to say that they've turned their season around a little bit, if indeed you can turn their season around after the one on the opening day of the season. They've only lost 1 of their last 4 matches. That's a concern because it was at Crawley, who are by no means a finished article or anything close to that, to be fair. They've played their last 2 at home, drawn them both, but I think a betting man would suggest that both Cheltenham and Morecambe are going to be down in the lower reaches of the table. And like you say, they've been on their travels 3 times this season, conceded 8, 4 and 2. I suppose you could argue with that they're getting better, but they're still not good enough. And I think Grimsby will take advantage of that. They certainly should take advantage of that, as long as they can keep 11 men on the field.
Yeah, Grimsby Town, again, you can get them close to the even money mark here. If anything, just a tad more, actually. So there are your 2 picks in English League 2, Exeter and Grimsby, both to win. Now we're going to move on to a league that me and you both cover, so we should have an interesting discussion. Major League Soccer, and as usual, this league provides many a tempting bet at the weekend. So many potential potential value out there, Kev. Where shall we kick off? Well, let's kick off by talking about the midweek match, Atlanta United against New England Revolution, and it ended 7-0 to Atlanta. But New England were down 9 men for, I think, something like 50 minutes, maybe even 55 minutes, Kev. Quite a sensational result. How does that impact them heading to this weekend? Because they've got Sporting Kansas City away. It's going to be a disaster for them, isn't it?
Well, it's one of the craziest games of football I've ever witnessed, first and foremost. 7 goals. 2 of them came via the video referee. The referee just didn't have a Scooby what was going on. He had to keep on resorting to his video official. He went to his video official for the most blatant handball that I actually don't think he saw. And then all of a sudden out comes the red card, and what was already a nightmare game for New England became, well, terrible. When you factor in the New England Patriots getting stuffed the week before, it's not been too good midweeks for any sports fan from New England, and I don't think it's going to get an awful lot better this weekend, Steve. Not only have they got to go away from home after getting, well, the mother of all beatings, but they've got to go away from home to a pretty decent side, admittedly a side that haven't looked anywhere near as good since Dom Dwyer left than before then. They've only won 1 of their last 5, which I guess you could say is kind of a concern, particularly when you look at sort of draws away at Columbus Crew. They're places that in the past they'd have eked out a 1-0 win at or something like that. But then when you look at their other fixtures, one of their defeats was in Seattle. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Seattle are absolutely flying at the minute. They've drawn against Atlanta United. They're my pick still for the MLS title. And they've lost at New York City. Anyone can lose at Yankee Stadium. The conditions in that game were absolutely atrocious as well, which went against them. I'm prepared to go with Sporting Kansas City again, though. They're pretty solid at the back, and I think that's a good thing because New England are going to concede goals in this game. I think that's almost a certainty. It's what they do, but particularly with the heavy legs that they're going to be carrying around after Wednesday night, which, you know, like you said, 55 minutes with 9 men. Add another 10 or 15 minutes onto that with 10 men, flights and everything else. This is a perfect opportunity for Sporting Kansas City to get a win under their belts. And actually, despite their little slump, they're still only 3 points off top spot. You know, that top spot in the Western Conference is still available for them. They've got games in hand, the 2 sides above them. It's only Vancouver, really, that they need to worry about in terms of catching someone. And a win here will go an awful long way to assisting with that. I think they'll win. I think they'll win quite big, 2-0, 3-0. And if New England really are tired, it could even be more than that.
Yeah, -1 Asian handicap you can get on Sporting Kansas City. I think that'll really shorten up, actually, as the day goes on, probably to -1, 1.25, even more. 2 really interesting stats for that game. Sporting Kansas City, they've only conceded 21 goals this season, best in MLS by a long, long way. Only Toronto can get anywhere near that. And also, away from home, New England Revolution have a 0-3-11 record. They've lost 11 out of 14 away games, conceding 35 goals in the process. That's how poor they are away. And when you factor in this midweek hammering, I know not everyone played for them, but it's a really obvious pick. I can't see how Sporting Kansas City don't win, Kev. I agree with you. I'm going to go with one now. New York Red Bulls against Philadelphia. This is, actually, no, we'll leave that because that's the Sunday game. We'll go that one right at the end. I'm going to go with Atlanta again against Orlando. They're at home. And since they moved to their new stadium, they've been absolutely like a team possessed, haven't they? 2 really great performances, especially the one against Dallas last week. I mean, they were superb in that. They just looked like a team not to be opposing. And I kind of get a feeling that they're going to go into the postseason with a great lot of momentum behind them. My only concern is it's their 3rd game in a week. Orlando obviously have had a full week of rest, and this is a big rivalry fixture. Both teams hate each other. I'm pretty sure there was some chants in midweek, weren't they? Something like "fuck you, Orlando." It's a real sort of hate rivalry, which is unusual for MLS, actually. Yeah, I mean, I think Kaká suspended for Orlando, which is a big loss. They've got another couple of injuries, another suspension. Atlanta haven't really been under pressure, have they, in the either second half? I know where they played. This will be their 3rd game in a week, but they were really just passing the ball around against Dallas, and it was like a training exercise on Wednesday night. Should still be plenty left in the tank for me. So I think Atlanta -1 Asian is going to be my selection there. How do you think? How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't disagree with any of that. Like you say, normally a midweek game would be a concern, wouldn't it? But I mean, it was a training ground exercise. Really, they were so dominant. I don't even think the defence, had anything to do. Did they? I think Guzan could have had the cigar out, sticking his feet up. Really, I can't even remember a save he made in the game, which is good because although the Atlanta Twitter feed might call him Mr. Clean Sheet, he's anything if a shot comes his way. This way in this game either. You got to look at Orlando's recent form. Lost 3 of their last 5, but they won last time out at DC United. Well, that's not really a form guide, is it? DC probably, certainly the worst side in the Eastern Conference, probably the worst side in the MLS, maybe with the exception of Minnesota. I don't know. But prior to that, they got absolutely wiped out by New England Revolution in New England. And okay, New England might be good at home, but you look at that as a direct form guide. New England 4, Orlando City 0, Atlanta 7, New England 0, and I think you've got yourself a pretty solid looking punt there.
Yeah, and another one I quite like this week is Vancouver against Columbus Crew over 3 goals. Usually, I mean, Columbus are usually just an over machine. Maybe less so in recent times, but this looks like an offensive matchup. Vancouver are actually more attack-minded than you think. Robinson's got them playing pretty well in the final third this year. He even got his absolute shit-heap striker, Eric Hurtado, to score in midweek. But he likes to rotate it around a lot, so I'd imagine that most of the first team will come back in for this weekend. They played basically a second team against Minnesota and beat them easily in midweek. But yeah, confidence is high with Vancouver. They're kind of going under the radar, aren't they, with a lot of pundits. They're top of the Western Conference. And whilst I just can't envisage them going deep in the playoffs, something will go wrong for them. They just don't feel like the sort of team that's going to get glory, in my opinion. But right now, they are a hot team. And they're still at home, obviously. Yeah, I just think there's at least 3 goals in this somewhere along the line, Kev. Doesn't feel like a 1-0 sort of fixture to me, especially with Menza suspended for Columbus Crew. He's quite a big defender for them, certainly a big physical presence at the back. So I like the overs in this one. Do you think Vancouver will win? They're not a bad price either, in fairness.
No, they're not a bad price. I am going to kind of show a little bit of caution with regards to them winning, though, because they did have a midweek game. It's slightly harder than Atlanta's, wasn't it, in terms of the output that they needed. But I certainly wouldn't disagree with you with regard to goals. Columbus Crew, they either win or they lose, don't they? 13 wins, 12 losses. There's kind of no in between, really. So if Vancouver can get a goal, then you know at least that Columbus Crew are going to go after the game and chase it, and vice versa. If Columbus Crew score early, then you know that Vancouver are going to pile on. And I think that Columbus are just going to shut up shop. It's not the way they at all. So, yeah, certainly wouldn't disagree with that. I fancy goals in that game too.
Well, they just go for it, don't they? Even with 5 minutes left, they'd rather go for all 3 points than risk losing one. That is the Columbus Crew style. And actually, at the weekend, that 1-1 draw, well, it shouldn't have ended 1-1 because both teams had enough chances at either end to take it. Let's move on to another team that played in midweek, Minnesota. Not Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota United. They lost 3-0 against Vancouver. They're on the road again, this time against Montreal, and I've got to say, it was a sorry performance from them in midweek, facing a weakened Vancouver. They just looked so tired and lazy and just not really up for it. And you think they're going to be struggling again, don't you?
I do, yeah. I don't really know what I make of Montreal Impact, to be fair. The only reason I say that is I thought they put in a really indifferent performance against New England last weekend. It was a game on television, wasn't it? And we were able to watch it fully focused and things. And I wasn't completely convinced, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they were on the road. And I don't think they're a particularly good road side. So that's good. And I guess that sounds a bit weird considering they've lost their last 2 home games, but at least they've lost them to Toronto and Chicago Fire. Arguably 2 of the best sides in the Eastern Conference, if not the entire competition. Minnesota is certainly nowhere near that level, that is for sure. And I think they're going to have their work cut out to sort of contain Piatti, Jamili, and or however you pronounce his name, and whoever they go with as a focal point up front, Minnesota. The only downside to Minnesota winning this game as easily as I think they will do is that blasted bell's going to get rung a number of times. But on this occasion, I'll let them off because I certainly think they're going to win this at least by a goal, but more likely to be by 2 or 3, particularly against a potentially tired and, let's be fair, pretty woeful defensively Minnesota United.
The bell could be rung for the most amount of times it's ever has done in a single game, Kev. That's how, if they really do rack up the score, it could be ding dong all night long.
It's going on mute. If it gets beyond 3, it's going on mute.
But let's not forget last week, actually, 0-0 against New England. They had 2-3 massive chances to take the lead. And if they took the lead, I think they probably would have won the game. So I think they're quite a good team, actually, Montreal. They've still got a chance of making the playoffs. I don't know at whose expense. It would take the likes of Columbus or New York Red Bulls or even Chicago to really finish badly. Still got a chance of making the playoffs. They've certainly got to win this one, though, big time. I would now talk about this Sunday game, New York Red Bulls against Philadelphia. And it's actually been a long time since the Red Bulls were at home. Kev, but when the last time they were at home, they've been in great form in front of their own fans, beating teams very, very easily. And we're now at the stage of a season which is a very familiar one for Philadelphia fans, where they're going to have nothing to play for. They always seem to get like this. When the playoffs go out of reach, they just lose sort of motivation a bit. Everyone expected them to be in this position, sad to say. Nothing new. And although it's a big rivalry match, New York Red Bulls are much better. I don't really like their formation these days, the Red Bulls, but it seems to be working for them, doesn't it? Players all over the shop, flexible, but they do attack well. And it's hard to see Philadelphia avoiding defeat. That's simple as that. I mean, even if it's only a 1-goal win, you get your money back here. It's probably going to be an over as well. Over 3 goals could be taken if you wanted to, but just the way the Red Bulls have looked at home of late, just Philadelphia for me are nowhere near their level right now.
Yeah, I mean, they've not played at home for an awful long time, have they, the Red Bulls? But if you need a reason to kind of stick with them, you just look at their last 3 away games. They've drawn the lot. Last 2 away games, drawn the lot. Okay, Dallas, I guess you could call that a hit and miss draw. But actually, when you look at it, going to Dallas is never an easy place to go. And they've got a decent draw in Chicago. I know Chicago is sliding a little bit, but again, they're not an easy side. So although they've been away from home, they've not been getting battered or anything like that. They're putting up spirited efforts. And as you just said a minute ago, they're probably the only side that the teams outside of the Eastern Conference can overtake in terms of the fact that Atlanta are absolutely flying and they've got games in hand on top of that. So they really need to win. Of course, this is the last game of the weekend, so they'll already know what's happened. And if Montreal have won, that will certainly give them a kick up the arse to make sure that they don't come a cropper in this game.
Yeah, I mean, just before we do move on, and we can't talk about every match, but honourable mentions for potential value. Seattle look a big price at Dallas, don't they? Toronto at LA Galaxy. I think San Jose are a decent price against the Dynamo. You could even make the case for Portland Timbers, couldn't you? If you had to back one of those 3 or 4 teams, who would your money be on?
I'd be on Seattle on the plus 0.5 handicap every single day of the week, Steve. And in fact, come the time I write this division up on my website, I wouldn't be at all surprised if I've talked myself into actually taking it. I don't know what's gone on in Dallas. Something's gone wrong because they've just slumped completely. Seattle are actually in decent form. The only thing that worries me is they're in a run of draws. Obviously, that's good for that bet, but I'd rather them have a little bit more momentum than that. So maybe that will put me off, but I certainly think of them 4, they're the one I'd want to be on.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Dallas, I don't know what's happened. The squad's good on paper. There's still time for them to rebound, but until they actually win a game again, and it's been a long time since they've won a game of football, probably the longest streak they've had in years without one. You can't back them, can you? Certainly not odds on. You'd be absolutely crazy to be taking it. So, that concludes MLS. Just one league to talk about now. That's the Norwegian Eliteserien. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the leagues covered, but still plenty more bets to come. So don't switch off just yet by any stretch of the imagination. There's one game on Saturday in this division. Comes from Stabæk, as Stabæk plays Strømsgodset, and you like the visiting side in that game.
Yeah, I like Strømsgodset, draw no bet, and I'm actually backing a team here, Kev. You'll be surprised by this one, that's yet to win an away game this season. But in terms of statistics, I think they can be ignored because Stabæk are missing their two best players for this game, Tortel Lumanza and Oe Omoiwamfa, who is the leading scorer with 15 goals in the league. So they're going to really miss him. They're going to really miss their midfield linchpin. And I think Strømsgodset, they've been playing quite well recently. They've lost 3 of their last 10 or something like that. But 2 of those are against Rosenborg. I'm not going to hold that against them. I just think they're due an away win. Sooner or later, someone that's crap away from home does get an away win. Just look at Colorado Rapids last week in the MLS. It will eventually happen. And I think this is the time to be firing with Godse. Good team at the minute, solid. Got 2 away draws at Sarpsborg and Molde. And they're definitely a better team than Stabæk are. And considering the team news, I think, draw no bet cover, Godse can get the win, Kev.
Yeah, even Burnley won an away game earlier on in this season, and they've got more travel sickness than you've ever experienced before. So you're right. Teams do always get one away win. Let's hope that comes on Saturday. Let's move into Sunday's matches. Plenty more picks, and we're hoping for some goals along the way. Certainly in 2 of the games. First one of those comes from Lillestrøm.
Yeah, Lillestrøm against Kristiansund, and I mean the shock result last week was Kristiansund beating Tromsø 4-1. No idea where that came from, but Kristiansund have changed their approach from early in the season. They tried to sort of grind out results. They couldn't literally score in a brothel, Kev. That's how bad it was. They changed their style, though, to become more proactive and more offensive. I think it's kind of worked for them. They're in this 3rd place relegation playoff position right now. I don't think they'd mind staying there at the end of the season, if I'm being brutally honest. But they're getting themselves on the coattails of the likes of Sogndal Vålerenga now as well above them. This is obviously a game that can try and get something out against Lillestrøm. Lillestrøm are a really big over team. 8 of their last 10 games have contained at least 3 goals. And Kristiansund's 7 of their last 10 have contained at least 3 goals. Stats don't lie in this instance. That both teams are very attack-minded. They can't defend that well. They're okay. It's just simply the style of play should lead to an open game of football. I don't see this being a tense one, unless it's sort of 5 minutes to go. Maybe both might take a draw there. But yeah, I think there's at least 3 goals, so I'll take the overs.
Yeah, sounds absolutely fair. Viking have conceded 7 goals in their last 2 matches, and I suspect you're expecting them to concede a few more when they take on Molde.
Well, they're in desperation mode now, Viking. They're 7 points adrift of the relegation playoff position, and they need wins. Draws aren't going to do it for them now. And I think the pressure's starting to get a bit on the manager again, Ian Birkmore, who's been unlucky this year. But I just think if they lost this game heavily, there might even be question marks about his future. I don't know. I think that they've signed so many new players during the summer. They've just changed formation again. There's talk about they're going to change their goalkeeper for this game. It's just too much going on for my liking. He's asking a lot for the team to gel very quickly. I could just see it be one of them frantic games where you don't, 1 minute Viking are doing well, then they concede a goal. Molde, I don't rate them as highly as their league position, but they do have a knack of converting chances, especially late goals. And I think this will be a good offensive sort of game. If it's a draw with 10 minutes to go, Viking, they just can't hold on for a point. They can't. And Molde, if they want to get a medal in the top 3, then they've got to go for the win as well. It just looks like a likely over. Wouldn't actually surprise me if it did take a late goal for this bet to cover, actually, or to fully win, because I'm going over 2.75. But matches are played usually 94 minutes in football, and this is the sort of game that's got a late goal written all over it one way or another. But yeah, over 2.75 is what I like. Absolutely,
yeah. Certainly a league for goals, but hopefully not in one game on Sunday. The Sogndal Haugesund game, you're expecting that to be a little less scoring?
Yeah, this is the one that sticks out to me as going to be the most boring of the card. Haugesund are actually, I think, the second in terms of overs and unders in the league. They've had only one team's had more unders than them this year. In fact, their goals against record is superb. They conceded, I think, something like 14 goals in their first 4 games, and since then they've only conceded 11 in their other 17. So they've made big defensive strides, solid at the back, don't give many chances away. They don't score that many goals, Augustin, either, which is obviously good for this bet. And Songdal, although they've been involved in more high-scoring games than you might expect this year, their natural mentality is to defend. Manager Eirik Bakke, the ex-Leeds manager, ex-Leeds player, not manager, he's all about discipline, rigidity, and just keeping it tight often. The previous match between the two ended 0-0 this year. Last year, there was a couple of 1-0s. This is not going to be an open fixture. Even if there's an early goal, it probably won't explode. Probably the highest scoring I could see it is something like 1-1. But under 2.5 is a good price, close to even money. And I'm happy to strike on this. It's a 0-0 contender, I think, Kev. So I'm happy to round this podcast off with a low-scoring bet.
Yeah, it does look like a game that's going to struggle for goals, that's for sure. Okay, that is it for the podcast, as Steve says. 18 bets we've given you in total on this podcast, plenty less form accumulators and the likes, as well as some really tasty singles. And on top of that, we've given you the lowdown on the big game in France this weekend as well. So plenty of stuff to get stuck into. Thanks, as ever, for your opinion, Steve. Good luck with all of your bets, and hopefully we're coining it in and Sunday night. And all that's left is until next week, mate. Adios.
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts as well, Kev. 18 bets. I wonder what that would pay in an accumulator. Pretty big.
We'll have a quid and we'll find out.
But yeah, enjoyed it very much and look forward to doing it next week as well. So take care, everyone. Goodbye.